this program, Ian Richards sits down with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honourable Mark Brantley, to recap the success of Diplomatic Week 2016 and what the outcomes mean to residents. The Minister also touches on the issues of visa-free travel to Canada and shares his personal feelings about his role as the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Honourable Mark Brantley, you have essentially capped your first diplomatic week under your stewardship as Senior Diplomat and Minister of Foreign Affairs. Did it meet your expectations?
I think it not only met our expectations, exceeded our expectations. First of all, I believe the response was overwhelming. We had nearly every country that is accredited to St. Kitts and Nevis with a presence in the region who came to this diplomatic week. We had African nations represented, we had European nations represented, the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, people from South and Latin America, Central America. We even had people from as far afield as Indonesia and the Philippines. So we had a very good turnout, a very good response. And of course, we also had our own diplomats who came home and who are, as we know, working in far-flung capitals around the world. They came home. And our cadre of honorary consuls also came home. So we had an amazing response. I'm truly, truly impressed with how we have been able to do this particular week.
Okay. Now, for the benefit of those who may not be aware, explain briefly what the purpose of Diplomatic Week is.
Well, Diplomatic Week was a brainchild of our now Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris, when he was Minister of Foreign Affairs. The first one was in 2007, there was another in 2008, and then it stopped. And so we had the idea that we would reintroduce it after a long hiatus of some 8 years. And so we reintroduced it. I want to publicly congratulate my Permanent Secretary, Ms. Bass. I think she did an absolutely phenomenal job. She and the team worked really hard. You know, sometimes the ministers come in and they give the big speech and people say it's the minister, but the truth is the work was done by them. They produced a beautiful magazine, Diplomatic Week, where we were able to share our ideas, our vision, our foreign policy agenda with the rest of the world. Diplomatic Week was intended to achieve a few things. One, it was intended to bring our diplomats together, those accredited to St. Kitts and Nevis, and our own diplomats who are working in various capitals, bring everybody in the same space so that they can exchange ideas, they can have a discussion. Dialogue, as you know, is the music, if you will, to which diplomacy dances. And so having people in the same space, having them being able to have a conversation, to get to know each other better, to share values, share views and opinions on myriad matters that are impacting us and our developmental agenda, we thought was important. It also, of course, allowed us to showcase St. Kitts and Nevis. As the smallest country in the hemisphere, it's important that people understand that notwithstanding our geographic size, notwithstanding our population, our voice has to be heard in international forums of the world. And as a consequence, it allowed us to showcase all that we had to offer. As you would no doubt be aware, we had events on Nevis, we had events on St. Kitts. We exposed them to all the investment opportunities, the tourism opportunities. We had reports from the various ministries. We told them about citizenship by investment. We told them about green energy, geothermal. We told them about what the country is doing so that they can have a better and deeper appreciation of what we are doing and what our developmental path is. The third thing is that we wanted the public to see diplomacy at work. Oftentimes I think the man on the street, the proverbial man on the street said, oh, they're just up and down the world, not doing any work, they're just enjoying themselves. The truth is it is hard work, it is intense work. Oftentimes we don't see the results for quite some time. And I made the comment last night because as we were at the Echo Park for dinner, I made the comment there that the Echo Park is evidence of diplomacy at work. So much that we do and that we get and that we benefit from. If you are going to Taiwan or Cuba or Mexico or Switzerland or anywhere else on a scholarship, it is diplomacy at work. And so oftentimes I think there's a level of disconnect. People don't really see the value of it. But we who are involved in it and charged with carrying out the country's foreign policy, I thought Diplomatic Week presented a beautiful opportunity. So for example, we had engagements with the youth, both in St. Kitts and in Nevis. We had a large cadre of young people who came forward, and I'm told by the diplomats themselves that they were impressed with the level of discussion, question and answer that they got from our young people. So it is my hope that Diplomatic Week would have ticked all of those boxes and would really give us, the country, the kind of bounce that we really deserve and that we ought to have, and demonstrate to the world that insofar as diplomacy is concerned, SKNIS Nevis is serious, that we can be a trusted and trustworthy partner in international affairs.
Right, and just for clarification, the eco park that you referred to is the St. Kitts Eco Park, which is of course a collaboration with the Taiwanese government, which we of course have very friendly relations with.
Absolutely.
Now, Minister, you also jumped a bit to my next question, which would be the type of foreign affairs, as you mentioned. It's foreign to the ordinary man, that is to say, the woman selling vegetables in public market, or the young man having a drink at Sunshine Bar in Penny's Beach. What would you say some of the outcomes are from this diplomatic week that would impact them directly?
It is a bit early to talk about outcomes. Certainly the week has just ended. But I can tell you I had some very, very good bilateral discussions with various representatives because, of course, people who came in, representatives of foreign governments, use that opportunity to engage bilaterally. Switzerland, for example, has indicated that they're offering scholarships for postgraduate work in Switzerland, full scholarships, and they are adamant that they want Kittitians and Nevisians to benefit. In fact, they've asked, begged, beseeched if we can get even 5 people to come forward. Morocco, we were able to sign a roadmap for political dialogue with the Kingdom of Morocco, and I believe that that will then lend itself to considerable assistance and partnership with Morocco. They have real expertise in agriculture, fertilizer industry. In fact, we have benefited in the past. So you talk about the young man having a drink or the young woman selling vegetables. It is possible that those vegetables were grown with fertilizer supplied by Morocco to the government under the auspices of agreements that we have arrived at. Morocco is also offering scholarships. And so we are keen to have our young people get that exposure. Now just imagine that you get an education, but you also get exposed to a foreign culture. You come back, therefore, with a greater appreciation of the world, and you come back having made new friends, because diplomacy ultimately is all about people. It's the people-to-people engagement that makes it worthwhile. And so I encourage our young people to seize the opportunities. I was very pleased, for example, to engage with the ambassador from Indonesia. She flew all the way from Colombia to be here. And she's telling me that she wants some young people to come. She wants to teach them batik and tie-dye and that kind of thing, apparently, in which Indonesians have great skills. She wants to do some vocational training. Bali and those areas are world-renowned for tourism. She's saying, can you come to us, get some training, short stints, 3 to 6 months, a year, whatever it may be, and expose your young people to what we do in our part of the world. And so, for me, I think that this is absolutely a golden opportunity. But lest the public feel that it's one way, and I think SKNIS Nevis is only about taking, I'm also pleased to say that Nicaragua, for example, has asked for our assistance to help them with tourism. And so Nicaragua is asking, can they send people here to learn about our tourism as they try to develop tourism in their own country. And so it's a relationship which is symbiotic in nature. It's a relationship where we try to benefit each other. And certainly countries come to us, they seek our voice, they seek our support in various international forums. We in turn seek development, however we can get it. My own pet peeve is education. That is my pet project. Even though I'm not Minister of Education, I sincerely believe that education is the only surefire way that we're going to lift our standards in the country. And so every chance I get, I raise that with visiting diplomats. And I am saying to the young man at Sunshines, the young woman selling vegetables, that there are myriad opportunities available through diplomacy, through friendly relations with these countries. And I hope that our nation will benefit and our people will put themselves in the line to get the benefits that flow. The last thing was, of course, the Turkey, who was also represented here through the ambassador. They signed a memorandum of understanding with the Chamber of Commerce here. So we are likely again to see the knock-on benefits of business and businessmen doing business with each other. So diplomacy, I think, covers the whole gamut.
All right, you actually touched on what I was about to ask you next as a follow-up as well. So instead, let me switch to the honorary consuls that we had here, as you mentioned, those representing St. Kitts and Nevis, so various countries around the world. I think there are about 17 of them officially has been listed in the magazine that was produced by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that you referred to. Some persons may say that it is a lot for a small country. You mentioned the smallest independent country in the Western Hemisphere. Your response to that?
It's not nearly enough. We need a lot more.
Why is that?
Because the world is a big place. Many honorary consuls are not just honorary consuls, they're not even honorary consuls to a country. Many of them are to a specific region. For example, we have an honorary consul in Germany, but he's only accredited to the region of Hamburg. So what happens to Munich, what happens to Berlin? I mean, Germany is a big place, an important country. So I think it's not nearly enough. But let me just make one thing clear. The terminology of honorary consul is important that the public understands that these are not paid individuals. These are individuals who have offered themselves to serve the interests of St. Kitts and Nevis, usually in their home country. And we do an evaluation, we do a background check, we do a determination in terms of their bona fides, we run them through a whole due diligence process, which they pay for, I might add. And if we determine that they are in a position to offer something to us, because they're business people or they're lawyers or they're in a position, politicians, some people are retirees, but they have connections. For example, we have Ambassador Doyle, who is based in France. He used to be the OECD.
And that's with UNESCO.
Exactly. So he represents us at UNESCO, does an amazing job. And as a consequence of those interactions with these individuals, they receive us when we travel. They're able to open certain doors for us, arrange meetings for the Prime Minister and for myself as Foreign Minister, for others. I know Mr. Doyle, Ambassador Doyle, for example, is very helpful to Minister of Education Richards when he was recently at UNESCO meeting. So the truth is that the honorary consuls are important. It's an important network, and for us it's free because these are individuals who are interested and who have offered themselves on that basis. I think we need more. 17, we don't even begin to scratch the surface in terms of how many countries there are in the world and how many different engagements we ought to be having as a nation ourselves.
Any specific focus that any honorary consul would have? In particular, you, for instance, you referred to one in Germany in terms of in Hamburg. Is there any specific purpose, for instance, if you are representing St. Kitts and Nevis or to this particular area, that this is something the government would ask them to focus in on, to lend assistance to help to advance the development of the country?
The short answer is yes. Some people, because of their background, are particularly equipped to assist us in different areas, and so it varies. For example, we're now considering someone in Florence, in Italy, and that person we hope will help us because there is an emerging fashion industry we feel in St. Kitts and Nevis. Florence is a major fashion capital, not just in Italy but in the world, and so we feel that these are individuals. He in fact brought one of his designers out here, and we had a great meeting. In fact, my watch is from that designer. And so the idea is that we can assist and work with different people for different needs. Florence, for example, has one of the best children's hospitals in all of Europe. And they're offering in the area of pediatrics to do some kinds of exchanges and a relationship going forward. So we try to leverage these various relationships the best way we can. We have an honorary consul in the Dominican Republic, and his efforts are largely based around immigration because we understand we have a lot of our own nationals who live there or from there originally, as the case may be, and there's a movement back and forth. So different needs. I mentioned Ambassador Doyle, he works with UNESCO specifically, but other interactions with France as we require. So we tend to assign different needs, and I will tell you that this new unity government has taken a very clear position that we don't want people who just are taking an honorific title. We want people who are prepared to work. And so we're telling them, listen, notwithstanding you're not paid, you've come forward, you've offered yourself, and we expect at the end of each year, at the end of each period, that we can look at it and say, these are the successes, these are the advancements that you have been responsible for the benefit of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Now, Minister Brantley, at the press conference recently, as a part of the diplomatic week function, it was mentioned that St. Kitts and Nevis, the reputation of it is quite prestigious, if you will, in international circles. What are the implications of this for St. Kitts and Nevis?
Well, the implications of reputation for yourself, for the listener, for the viewer, for the country, is really the same. Your reputation is very important because based on your reputation, people take you seriously or they don't take you seriously. You know, if you have a bad reputation, you know, you say something, goes in 1 year, goes out the next, and say, nobody's studying with him, you're always chatting foolishness. If you as a country, you have a good reputation, people see you as a legitimate, serious, and trustworthy partner, I think it augurs well for relationships going forward. I don't think it's a secret in our country that we had damaged some relationships because I feel a feeling of diplomacy. Diplomacy is not something that necessarily we shout from Mount Liamiga or Nevis Peak, as the case may be. A lot of times it's quiet work, quiet meetings, sometimes in the margins of bigger meetings. You know, it's amazing how many meetings you have over drinks, over lunch, a pass in a corridor. You stop and you have a conversation. I first met the new Foreign Minister of Canada, Stéphane Dion, as we were waiting for our cars to take us back to the hotel.
And that was overseas?
Overseas, in Malta. So we had no formal meeting, but I used the occasion to chat to him as we were waiting. And, you know, these sometimes interactions turned out to be quite important because the next time you meet them formally and you engage with them formally, you can reflect and say, oh, we spoke, these were the issues that were mentioned. So I think that we've suffered, and the country has suffered, because there was a failure of diplomacy. We adopted certain positions, I think, which in retrospect were unfortunate, the consequence of which we damaged relations with the United States, a very important and powerful partner. We damaged relations with Canada, resulting in our withdrawal of a privilege that we had enjoyed for a long time. And we have tried very hard, this government, to recalibrate those relationships. And I'm quite happy that one of the successes that we've had so far, we've not had any problems with our partners. In fact, in private conversations, and I think to some extent publicly, they're commenting on the sort of new approach, a new glasnost, if you will, an openness to SKNIS Nevis in terms of how we conduct our foreign policy. Because while we're a small country and therefore vulnerable to pressures coming from outside, I think if people see that we are serious about what we're doing, and Diplomatic Week is a manifestation of that level of seriousness. If people see that we're serious, that we're making a genuine effort to engage with the world, understanding that there are issues that are happening out there that are decided in Brussels or New York or Washington, but they impact the lady selling vegetables and they impact the gentleman having a drink at Sunshine's. That gentleman might well have been planning to go visit his family in Canada for vacation. And decisions or failures within the context of diplomacy would now impact him. And so that is how we need to see it. So the truth is that I think the recalibration of relationships is important, and we've been working hard at doing that.
Any progress on the visas? You mentioned that.
It is difficult for me to report progress. What I will say is that we are optimistic, cautiously so. And I think we're optimistic for a number of reasons. One, there has been a change of government in Canada. And the new government, I believe, has demonstrated a more liberal approach, a more inclusive approach. Indeed, if you know Canadian politics, you would know that the father of the new Prime Minister, Pierre Trudeau, was the one who opened up Canada to immigrants in the first place.
And he was a Prime Minister as well.
He was a Prime Minister. In fact, I learned recently that he used to holiday in Nevis at the Four Seasons there. Four Seasons, as you know, is a Canadian company. And so Pierre Trudeau opened up Canada. And his son now, Justin Trudeau, has, in the utterances that we've heard so far from them as a new government, for example, they've indicated that Mexico, with 120 million people, will now be granted visa-free access to Canada. And my argument is perhaps a little basic, perhaps, but I say, if you can allow 120 million people in, what the problem you have with 50,000, you know? The truth is, as I said to someone, you could take up everybody in SKNIS Nevis, land them in Canada, nobody would notice.
Right.
So the truth is that we understand that the visa imposition was less about concerns about immigration and more about, as I say, failing diplomacy. The articulated reason has also, I think, evaporated. Because back then, as you know, it was an issue about Iranians using SKNIS Nevis citizenship to avoid and evade sanctions that the world had imposed on Iran. Well, guess what? The world has changed since then. And Iran, which used to be a pariah, used to be referred to as part of the axis of evil, Iran is no longer that. And the same powers that used to castigate Iran are now falling over themselves to invest in Iran and do business in Iran. And so the sanctions have been lifted. And so it bolsters our argument that the underlying rationale for denying our people visa-free access to Canada, which was purportedly people using our system to evade and avoid sanctions on Iran. That has disappeared. I feel as well, although I ought not to read too much into it, but the decision of the new Prime Minister of Canada to holiday in our country, spend 10 glorious days with his family in Nevis, I think he was eminently pleased at the reception that he received. And to me, I see some symbolism in that there was, in my respectful view, a decision that he could take to go anywhere in the world. He's the Prime Minister of Canada. The fact that he chose here, and he chose our little island of Nevis, I think sends a message that Canada doesn't have an ongoing problem with us. I think if they did, he would not have come here as certainly the leader of that country. And so I'm looking at all that. And of course, the public would have known, because I've updated in the past to say that we have opened now, for the first time, a full High Commission in Ottawa. So we've created the groundwork and the platform for engagement with Canada at a particular level. Our High Commission presents her credentials next week, and thereafter we hope that the Honourable Prime Minister can lead a delegation to engage formally with Canada on this issue. So we are optimistic. I think we're doing all the right things. We've developed a good relationship with High Commissioner Hanley, who's the High Commissioner to Barbados and Eastern Caribbean. In fact, I went so far as to tell him that I know there's a Hanley's Road and a Hanley's Estate in Nevis, so he might well be the owner of property in Nevis and not know, because as you know, Hanley is quite a popular and common Nevisian name. He, I think, is doing good work for his country, and the relationships, again, the platform for dialogue, the ongoing engagement, we feel will be a fruit. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
It's important to note that with the Prime Minister, through those visits, that he himself got a bit of the local feel for the area, so that he would be aware, and that may help to impact decision making, as you well mentioned. So talk to us, Minister, as we bring it back to Diplomatic Week now.
Sure.
What are some of the outcomes, the high points that you are taking away from this hosting?
The high point for me is the pride for St. Kitts and Nevis. You spoke earlier about reputation. I think we've enhanced our reputation, because all of these diplomats are telling us what a wonderful time they had. And my expectation is they're going to go back, they're going to report to their capitals, they're going to talk about this. More than that, I've been receiving calls from my colleague foreign ministers throughout the OECS who are now asking, how did we pull this off? They're now thinking about doing something. They want a sense. So because Kibas was the one who pulled it off, I'll have to put them in touch with her. But the truth is, I feel their reputation has been enhanced. I think we've created a very good platform for ongoing dialogue. I think our bilateral discussions were very helpful, and the opportunities that exist by exploring those bilateral engagements with other countries, I think, will benefit our people. So for me, those are the high points. But diplomacy is an ongoing process. It is a process that takes time. It's a process that requires ongoing conversations, but I'm truly optimistic.
Anything that didn't work as you envisioned it to, something that needs to be strengthened?
I truly can't say, and this is why I said it exceeded expectations, because normally you would have blips, you would have hiccups and difficulties. I truly have not heard any complaints. All the reports that have come back to me, formally and informally, have been very, very positive. So I think we outdid ourselves this week.
Okay. So what's next for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
We continue to work hard. That's what we do every day. I feel that there are a number of annual engagements, the United Nations, the OAS, etc. Those are coming up that we have to deal with. I think the Diplomatic Week was our punctuation mark, so to speak, for this year. It is now something, with the blessings of the Prime Minister, that we would want to institutionalize. Perhaps every 2 to 3 years we would have a week, because the public would understand that it's costly, both in terms of time and money to put it on. But as part of that cost, I am very pleased that we had partnerships, and many in the private sector came forward to partner with us to allow us to stage a very successful week. So I think things went well. For me, going forward, it's really now to dig a little deeper into these relationships, intensify the discussions that we started here, and to continue those discussions ultimately for the benefit. And so Mexico has indicated that they will be shortly announcing 150 scholarships for the region, for people to go to Mexico. They are offering even coconut palm trees, which are resistant to lethal yellowing. As you know, lethal yellowing is a disease that has wiped out virtually all the palm trees, the coconut trees in Nevis and many in St. Kitts. Again, tangible results that we can get if only we maintain the dialogue, the discussion, and try our best to ensure that our people ultimately benefit. So we have scholarships on offer from Mexico, scholarships on offer from Morocco, scholarships on offer from Indonesia, scholarships on offer from Switzerland. We have, of course, the usual British Chevening scholarships that people apply for. We have scholarships that are offered through the OAS. So we have all these multitude of opportunities. Taiwan, Cuba. It is for our people now to take advantage of them. So my job, create the opportunity. The job of the listener and the viewer, take advantage of the opportunity.
And finally, Minister, before I let you go, I do have to ask, looking back at it, it's been a bit over a year now that you've been the Minister of Foreign Affairs. How have you found it?
It has been a steep learning curve for me. Clearly, I have no training in diplomacy, I have no training in foreign affairs. The Prime Minister, in his wisdom, gave me the opportunity to lead this particular ministry. I can say that I have an excellent team, which has helped. And so my learning curve has been less steep because I can rely on people who are there. We have, I believe, a very, very good cadre of professionals in the foreign service for St. Kitts and Nevis, both in capital and those who are serving abroad. And they serve us well. I think for me, it has been very rewarding. It's hard work at times because there's lots of lengthy travel away from family, away from home, away from my constituency. But I feel that it has been rewarding because when I look now, we see a list of, I think, 13 or 14 youngsters going off to Taiwan to study. Those are people normally who come from families who can't afford. And so to feel that through our efforts and through ongoing dialogue and friendly relations with countries, we can create that kind of opportunity. To say to the youngster in McKnight or the youngster in Brown Hill that you now have an opportunity to go off and study, be the first in your family to get a degree, make something of yourself, become a doctor, become a dentist, become a farmer, whatever it is you desire, that through those types of engagements. So for me, it's rewarding work. It's difficult at times, sometimes to attend a 2-day meeting. I have to fly for 2 days to get there, 2 days to get back, sleeping in hotels and being away from friends, loved ones, family. It's always difficult. But I feel at the end of the day, there's great reward for the country. And so that is the motivation. Of course, that's why all of us in public life, all of us seek to serve. And so for me, that is what is important. So hard work, but rewarding at the end of the day. And I hope that God will bless us, that we continue to engage and continue to benefit from these relationships.
Honourable Mark Brantley, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Senior Diplomat, of course. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay.
Visit the SKNIS on YouTube to watch informative, exciting, and thought-provoking programs such as Working for You, Current Speeches, SKNIS exclusives, and much more. Hit the subscribe button to be alerted when a new video is uploaded. What are you waiting for? Head to the SKNIS and start exploring.